be talking about the development of a 4-year plan for the state's workforce development system. We have planned questions and pauses for those questions for audience members throughout this presentation, but please put any questions that you might have as they come up into the Q&A or chat box. Is that right, Kirsten? Do we want that coming into the Q&A or do we want that coming into the chat box?
Either one. I can help me in both.
Great. Thank you. So wherever you find a place to put your question, we will get it answered. So real quick, wanted to provide some background and context to our meeting today. So Illinois has a workforce development system that strives to provide workers and individuals with training, skills, support they need to develop and navigate a successful career path and to find the employees that help their businesses grow. To ensure the efforts of the workforce development system are focused, cohesive, symbiotic, every 4 years, the state develops a strategic plan for that system. We're currently doing that today. So our purpose today is to discuss the concepts that are being explored for inclusion in that state plan. And we want to get your feedback on what the plan and the state workforce system can do to ensure the success of job seekers, workers, individuals, and employers in the state. To ensure everyone can participate in the discussion today, we want to start with some level setting. We're going to give you an overview of the Workforce Innovation and Opportunities Act. We pronounce that WIOA sometimes. We're going to discuss how it is structured here in Illinois. We'll then move into a review and discussion of the specific items under development for the state plan. I'm going to pause here to see if anyone has any questions about our task and purpose today. I also see in the chat that someone is asking about pinning the interpreter.
Yep, I'm getting it. I'm working it out with them, Drew.
Great, thank you. So again, if you have any questions, please either put that into the chat box or the Q&A panel. All right. So what is WIOA? It is a federal legislation that's designed to strengthen and improve our nation's public workforce system to help get Americans, including youth and those with significant barriers to employment, into high quality jobs and careers, and to help employers hire and retain skilled workers. WIOA strategically aligns core workforce development programs. And WIOA fosters regional collaboration within states through local workforce areas. It seeks to provide high quality jobs and careers for job seekers and individuals. And it seeks to help employers hire and retain skilled workers that meet their needs. So the framework of our workforce development system is such that it is constantly feeding back on the work that is being done in the hopes of improving itself. First, we have the vision, so that's in blue. It is the lens of what the workforce development system can be and should be, and it's the lens through which everything else in the system is viewed. So that's why we have this big blue circle that we're looking at everything else within the system. Next, we have yellow, the strategy. Strategies set the priorities and objectives to achieve the vision for Illinois' workforce development system. Strategies inform policies, which are in red. These are developed through inclusive efforts to set clear expectations, requirements, and procedures for operationalizing priorities. And then lastly, we have operations, or orange here. Operations are plans to implement strategies and policies with real commitments and resources. These efforts are maintained and adapted over time. So going back to that blue lens, starting at the top, we have the governor and the Workforce Development Board. They are integral to setting the vision and strategies for our workforce development system. The Workforce Development Board consists of committees, work groups, and task force that each have a unique purpose described on the slide here. So there are standing committees and subcommittees that serve ongoing efforts to develop initiatives that advance priorities in the state plan. There are task force that have a defined charge and timeline around a specific initiative. And then there are policy work groups. They have a defined charge to develop a policy around a specific topic. Moving to the operational side, there are WIOA interagency teams. They're created to focus on operational issues of WIOA. And while all these groups have representation on various state board committees, task force, and work groups, the local workforce boards and the Illinois Workforce Partnership are outlined in blue because they also inform and implement policies at the local level. Does anyone have any questions about this quick background regarding the structure of WIOA in the state? Great. So now that we've reviewed the basic structure of WIOA, we can see how the state plan that we're talking about today fits into the implementation of the system. So the vision provides a vision of the governor's integration of workforce, education, and economic development policy and programs for the state. The plan also serves as a federal compliance document for the United States Department of Labor and Education under the federal WIOA law. The state plan is divided into several different elements. We're going to start with talking about the strategic elements. They are essentially the part of the plan that includes the analysis of the state's economic conditions, workforce characteristics, workforce development activities. The strategic elements also address skills gaps, as well as to ensure that we're meeting employers' demands using activities and strategies. And we'll get into those later. Following that analysis, we set a vision and goals and outline strategies that help us achieve those vision and goals. So let's talk a little bit about some of the economic analysis that is happening and what we can learn from that. So while the state has a somewhat higher unemployment rate than the nation, there's also a higher labor force participation rate than the nation. In both geographies, the labor force participation rate remains lower in 2023 than it was in 2019. Labor force participation fell in April 2020, obviously due to the pandemic, but it gradually recovered throughout 2021. And then by January of 2022, the labor force participation had nearly returned to pre-pandemic levels and it remained relatively stable throughout this year. So that's at a state level, but unemployment varies considerably within Illinois by region and by county. The region with the highest unemployment rate in the state is the northern state line. So that's the border between Illinois and Wisconsin. It has a not seasonally adjusted unemployment rate of about 6%, and that's compared to 4.5% for the full state. 3 regions tied for the lowest unemployment rate at about 4.5% are Northeastern, so that's the Chicago Metroland area, Southeastern, and Southwestern. However, unemployment is not even consistent within those regions. For example, the Southern region has a 5.1% unemployment rate, but the rate is higher than 7% in the counties of Alexander and Pulaski. In both Illinois and the nation, the group with the lowest unemployment rate is white women, and the group with the highest unemployment rate is African American men. In both Illinois and the nation, Hispanic workers, both men and women, have an unemployment rate between white workers and African American workers. Another part of our economic analysis has found that over the next 7 years in Illinois, transportation and warehousing, financial services, professional services are predicted to be the biggest growth sectors. Healthcare, government, and construction are predicted to grow at a slower rate. And manufacturing, education services, and other services are predicted to decline somewhat. So we use all of this information to help guide what we're doing when we set our goals and our strategies for the workforce development system. But I want to pause here and ask the question, how do these findings align with the reality that you see on a daily basis? I know I threw a bunch of numbers at you and statistics, but does this seem to reckon with your lived experience? I'll also pause and ask if anyone has any other questions about the economic analysis performed. While you're thinking about that, I will say that I've seen a couple of questions come through in the chat, and Kirsten has answered this, but I wanted to provide an answer to the full group. These slides will be made available after the presentation today. So you will get these slides. So we're seeing a couple of comments through the chat. One is that healthcare is one of the largest growth areas in central Illinois. And then the other is that in Aurora, they're not seeing a decline in manufacturing needs or healthcare. And I think that goes to speak to how diverse and complex Illinois' economy is at a statewide level. What can be a growth sector in one area of the state could be on the decline in another area of the state. And as an aside, while we're talking about the state plan, that is why regions within the state, economic development regions, and then even local workforce areas devise their own plans to account for those discrepancies between what we see as a statewide trend and what might be happening at a more local level. We have another comment that says that kind of reflecting what we see at the statewide level, that manufacturing is starting to soften a little bit in central Illinois. And then we have a question, will those differences between regions be addressed in the statewide plan? Yes, we will note the differences between those, between the region, the economic development regions in the statewide plan. I also see a question that came in, and I'm going to, this will be one of the cases where I will have to get back to you, and we will also, any questions that we can't answer today, we will provide written feedback for those, for people. And the question that we will answer in a written format is, how does the youth unemployment rate factor in? And I know it does, but Valerie, I can't speak to it specifically. All right, thanks so much, everyone, for your reflections and your questions. So next, let's move on to skills gap. So we're still in the process of interpreting some of the data around this. But one of the findings that we have seen is that we have a gap between certificate earners and those with associate degrees and job openings requiring those certificates and degrees. So that means there are more openings currently in the state than there are potential employees. The other thing that we have noticed is that the opposite is generally true for bachelor and higher degrees. So there are more bachelor and higher degree earners in the state than there are job openings for those degrees. And again, just like the economic analysis, this can change sector to sector. So for example, software engineer, there are many more job openings for software engineer within the state than we have bachelor and higher degree earners. So that's a place where I guess it is the opposite of what we're seeing as a statewide trend. So in addition to examining those external factors impacting individuals and employers, the state also looks internally. It does some self-reflection. So the workforce system is analyzed in areas of capacity, its strengths and weaknesses. And this is an effort that has been going on for at least the past 18 months, even outside of the development of the state plan. There's been a concerted effort to examine the workforce system and ask how can we improve. So efforts include the Governor's Commission on Workforce Equity and Access, as well as the State Board's Equity Task Force. So some of the weaknesses that we've identified are that the system can be confusing to navigate, both for individuals and for employers. There can be a lack of awareness among the public about what the workforce system has to offer. And there is a struggle within the workforce system to track individuals who are highly mobile and might move between different service delivery areas. Some of the strengths of the workforce system is its continuous improvement effort to address any areas of weakness that are found. So again, I want to open it up to feedback and questions. What are some of your experiences? What do you think the workforce system here in the state does well? What are some of its weaknesses? And do you have any suggestions for improving the workforce system? And I'll just pause here for a little bit for you to reflect on that. And again, ask either in the comment box or in the question and answer area. So I see at least one. Okay, we have a couple of chats coming in. So I'm going to take them in the order that they came in. So one of them is, will the new plan involve a more intuitive computer system? I feel like that should be a priority. Our current system does not have checks in it to prevent enrolling ineligible participants, and it keeps old participants on the list of customers, which becomes increasingly problematic the longer we work with participants. So there is an effort in the plan, and this will get into the activities section that we'll talk about later, but there is an effort in the plan to look at the systems that support service delivery and what we can do to improve them, both from a behind the counter, so from a staffing standpoint, and from a in front of the counter from a customer standpoint. So I'm sorry to not provide a lot of details around that, Jennifer, but that is something that is on the radar and currently being worked on. And then we have a comment that says, eliminate barriers, friction that keeps people from taking advantage of the workforce system. And certainly, thank you, James. That is been an effort of examination, again, over the past 18 months, and will continue to be an effort of not just examination, but of implementation in this plan. And then Norm says improve IWTS. Thank you, Norm. All right. So now that we've provided that analysis, done that analysis, we set vision and goals, as well as the strategies to accomplish those goals. And we already have a draft of these. And so our next part of this presentation will be going over these drafts and getting your feedback on our vision, goals, and strategies. In May of this year, Governor Pritzker held a visioning session of state board members, state agency directors, employers, labor and community advocates, and other workforce stakeholders. Based on the feedback from that visioning session, the governor's office, and other reports and commissions that have happened around the workforce system, the following draft vision has been proposed, and that is Illinois' workforce system will meet employers, job seekers, and community members where they are, centering the customer experience in an interoperable, equitable, and accessible manner to ensure all customers achieve their goals. We will support employers by building diverse, quality career pathways and provide effective training, education, and economic opportunities for job seekers and communities to thrive. So that is the broad overarching direction that we have been charged with for the next 4 years. So from that vision, 3 goals have been developed. And these, again, were discussed at that May meeting and then have been refined in the months since then. These goals are designed to address 3 components of the workforce system: the system itself, employers, and individuals and job seekers. So our draft goals currently are that Illinois' workforce development system is an example of excellence in its approach to collaboration and customer service. Illinois' workforce development system will enhance employers' ability to hire and retain skilled workers that meet their emerging needs. And Illinois' workforce development system will use customer-centered and data-informed practices to improve the quality of the job seeker experience in pursuing fulfilling career pathways in a manner that is equitable and accessible. So again, we're gonna pause here for a moment, ask you to reflect on that, provide any reaction you have to those goals, and then ask you too, will achieving these goals help both individuals and employers? Will it benefit individuals and employers if we achieve these goals? Kirsten, we also have the ability, if anyone wants to come on mic to speak. Is that correct?
Yes, they would just need to raise their hand and then I can unmute them.
Great, thank you. So we want to make sure that people can participate in any way that they want. So feel free again to type your comments, enter them into the Q&A section, or raise your hand and you can come on the microphone. We also would welcome your feedback after today. This is not a one and done kind of stakeholder feedback and engagement process. We will get into other opportunities you have to engage around the development of the state plan later today. We'd love to hear from you now, but again, if we do not, or you want to provide feedback later, we will talk about that later in this presentation. And again, I see the question coming through, will there be a PowerPoint made available for this? Yes, we will be sending out the PowerPoint after today's session, I think tomorrow. All right. Well, if there's not any other feedback on the goals, we're going to move into the draft strategies to accomplish those goals. So currently there are 11 essential state strategies that underpins the state's commitment to engage and support all parts of our education, workforce, and economic development systems. Each strategy sits under a specific goal. So we will go through those strategies goal by goal. We will start with our draft goal 1 strategies. Again, this is the goal that centers around improving the workforce development system itself. So once again, that goal is that Illinois' workforce development system is an example of excellence in its approach to collaboration and customer service. So under that goal, we have 5 strategies. The first strategy is that the system uses a customer-centered approach to service delivery. You might also hear this called human-centered approach to service delivery. We are using those interchangeably. For the purposes of this plan, we are saying customer-centered approach because that customer could be an organization such as a business as well as an individual. The second strategy is that the system centers equity and access. The third strategy under this goal is that the WIOA state partners and other workforce and education systems in Illinois enhance coordination and collaboration. Fourth, job seekers and employers have a broader awareness of the workforce development system. And then lastly, the state enhances local service delivery through supporting frontline workers. So I'm going to pause here and ask you a few questions and again, open it up for feedback. How will these strategies help accomplish this goal? Do you think they will help accomplish this goal? Are there strategies that need to be changed, added, or removed to accomplish this goal? And then a question about a specific strategy is, do you have any suggestions for improving the broader awareness amongst the general public, both employers and individuals, of the services provided by the workforce development system? Norma is providing feedback directly on about the broader awareness strategy, and he said flexibility with WIOA dollars for advertising. Then Sarah Graham says that one-stop doors not fully open do not truly exhibit a customer-centered design. Real quick, so Jody talks to goal number 3. Jody, do you mean strategy number 3, or are you talking about the goal number 3 out of the 3 goals? Okay, that's what I thought. Thank you. So that is something that we will talk about when we get into the activities section of the state plan. And I think that fits squarely under that strategy number 3. So the way that the plan is designed is we start with a vision, and then under the vision are goals, and then under the goals are strategies, and then under the strategies are activities. And activities are where we really get into detail about actions that will be taken over the next 4 years. So here we're still staying a little bit higher than specific details, but still your feedback is taken, and we're thankful for that. Then Kathy talks about just as the state advertised on television for all in Illinois, it could do the same for the workforce development system. We have another piece of feedback here on the last strategy. Locations of offices can be problematic as transportation is a huge issue for many customers. Thank you all. This has been great feedback. And again, I will sound like a broken record, but today is not your only chance to provide this feedback. We want to make sure that you have many opportunities. All right. Thank you, Dr. Lapentino. We will look at updating that tense of the first goal. All right, we will move on to the strategies that are under draft goal number 2. So again, as a reminder, that draft goal, is that Illinois' workforce development system will enhance employers' abilities to hire and retain skilled workers that meet their emerging needs. We have 3 strategies under this goal. So the first is that the workforce development system supports, informs, and enhances employers' talent strategies. Secondly, that the various partners in the system leverage their business services to provide a more holistic support to employers. And then lastly, the workforce development system will build out tools and practices that can help employers adopt a culture that promotes equity and accessibility. Once again, I'm going to pause here, ask you, how do you think these strategies will accomplish this goal? Will these strategies help accomplish this goal? And are there any changes, additions, removals around strategies that we need to be considering? That includes, I know I went through the hierarchy and that activities are under strategies, but if you do have activities under a specific strategy that you think would help, please let us know, and we will document those for further consideration later in the plan. All right. We will move on to draft goal number 3 and the strategies contained under there. So again, this is our last goal. Oh, I'm going to pause here. I see a comment coming in under draft goal number 3 and its strategies. Possible an additional strategy, educate employers on the services available to them through the workforce development system. Many we talk to still don't know. Yes, that is, so we've had that discussion internally about where that should live. I think I'm going to go back 2 slides, so bear with me. I think we would count that under this job seekers and employers have a broader awareness of the workforce development system. But yes, we want to make sure that we raise up educating employers on the services that are available to them through the system, to make sure that they take advantage of those services. So thank you. All right, we will move on to draft goal number 3, strategies. So again, this is our last goal. And this goal is that the Illinois workforce development system will use customer-centered and data-informed practices to improve the quality of the job seeker experience in pursuing fulfilling career pathways in a manner that is equitable and accessible. So we have 3 strategies that sit under this goal, and they are that the workforce development system educates and supports job seekers regarding how to navigate the labor market. The workforce development system interacts with job seekers in the places where they live and visit. And that the workforce development system uses a data-informed approach to reduce barriers to services for job seekers who have historically been marginalized. Now I'm going to pause here and ask you the same questions that we've asked for the past 2 goals. Our strategies. Will these strategies help accomplish this goal? And if so, how? And are there any strategies that need to be changed, added, or removed to help accomplish this goal? All right. We will, let's see. So we have one comment coming in that says, our agency primarily serves first-generation immigrants. While highly motivated to seek employment, seeking gainful employment while learning English presents a number of challenges. How is the state considering the barriers for customers, clients who are English language learners? That's a great question, and that has been a topic of discussion internally. We know that there have been a large influx of immigrants and migrants into the state, and we want to make sure that they are served. And providing services to help educate them and learn English is one of the main tasks of one of the core programs in WIOA. So that is an ever constant thought in our mind. And so we are considering how to reduce barriers for them, how to make it easier for them to enter the job market. And Emma, I'm going to circle back with you if it's okay after the presentation, because we are looking to talk directly to organizations and individuals who are English language learners to maybe get some direct feedback from them. Yeah, so that would be fantastic, because that is something, an ongoing conversation we are having, is how to best serve that group of folks. And we have a comment that ongoing customer feedback is necessary. And yes, that is, again, something that we are building into this plan, is continuously seeking customer feedback to make sure that we are providing services in a way that truly helps people. And I would add, again, I don't want to get too far ahead of myself, but when we talk about kind of next steps here, we will talk about some other opportunities to provide feedback. And we would encourage you, if you are a service provider or if you are, again, behind the counter and not a customer attending today, please share the information that we will share with you about ways to provide feedback with your customers and your communities so we can get as broad of a feedback circle as possible. All right, so now that we've kind of gone through the analysis of the labor market, the skills gap, the workforce development system, the creation of the vision for the system, as well as draft goals and strategies to accomplish those goals. So now we're going to move into the operationalizing of those ideas. So we're going to go over the main elements of the operational elements. And that includes the implementation of the state strategies. So this describes specific actions the state will take to operationalize strategies. The state operating systems and policies. So these are the systems and policies that support the implementation of the state strategy, such as maintaining labor market information systems, data systems, communication systems, case management systems, job banks, those kind of items. To the point about customer feedback, we'll also talk about assessment and evaluation. So how the system will continuously assess the performance outcomes of the workforce system and how we are doing in meeting our benchmarks. We'll also talk about program data and how the state aligns and integrates data and data systems to enhance the coordination of WIOA programs. And then ensuring that the one-stop delivery system is accessible to all. These elements identify efforts to support the strategic vision explored in the strategic elements. But for the purposes of today, we're going to be highlighting content regarding the implementation of strategies, ensuring that the one-stop delivery system is accessible. And I'm just going to pause real quick to read another chat. So Harper College has a large and continuously growing immigrant population within our adult ed program. We are also interested in initiatives the state will incorporate to support these services. Thank you. And if you wouldn't mind, I don't know if you can private message me or if you're okay sharing both Emma and Joanne sharing your emails, but if you put your emails, or we might have them already, if we can get those somehow so we can connect after this presentation, that would be fantastic. Thanks, Emma. So the group that is developing content for the state plan is an interagency group of individuals, and they are currently working on activities. So the draft activities are being worked on. This is a selection of activities that is being drafted and formed in the state plan. It is by no means complete, but we did want to kind of give you an idea of some of the things that we are exploring. So that includes what does a virtual front door look like for job seekers, for individuals, for employers? How can we set a good job standard for training programs and employers that the system works with? Good jobs are a core component of WIOA, and how can we ensure that the training and employers that we are referring people to meet that definition? Again, I think we've heard this over and over today. What does a marketing plan for the workforce development system look like? How do we what are some specific actions we can take to raise awareness of the system? I think that word of mouth, by just being a beacon of excellence, is one of the best ways that we can raise awareness, but are there other means? Jody, I think this goes back to something that you raised. How do we create a better referral system for local areas so we can refer individuals and job seekers and employers to programs that can match their needs? How do we utilize pre-apprenticeships and apprenticeships to build talent pipelines? So using those pre-apprenticeships and apprenticeships to not just support job seekers and individuals, but to build those into pipelines for individuals to get the employees that match their needs. How do we encourage sector-based partners and partnerships so that employers can thrive together? And how do we provide tools and practices for employers to support DEIA efforts in their workplace? And DEIA, again, is diversity, equity, inclusion, and access. So again, that's something that we've heard from both sides of the house, that employers want to do this, but they need help knowing where to start. So I will pause here and ask again for your feedback. What are some specific activities or actions that you would like to see described in the plan to ensure the success of employers and individuals? So James asks, a marketing plan for the system. Does that mean branding WIOA as a step between the customer and a local workforce development office? James, could you elaborate on that a little bit? And while you do that, I'm going to read Norm. He said, continued funding for pre-apprenticeships is key for the long-term success of talent pipeline management and full apprenticeships. Thank you, Norm. And we have a question coming in that asks, who will be reviewing accessibility? So is that going to be assistive tech, independent living center, or local DRS office? So, and DRS is part of Department of Human Services. They are one of the core programs, and they administer the vocational rehabilitation part of our WIOA workforce development system. And because they are one of the core partners, they are very much involved in the development of the full state plan, and they will be doing the review at the state level of this plan. The plan will also be published in January for a public comment period, and will be available to everyone to review, to read, and to provide their feedback. So James says, the customer doesn't care about our branding. They want a job. A marketing plan that puts another layer between the customer and work causes friction. Yeah, James, I think we would all agree with that. We're looking to market what the system has to offer. So making people aware of the services provided by the system and how that would benefit them. So for the job seeker, that's how the system can connect them with employers, and for the employers, that's how the system can build up their talent pipeline and connect them with the skilled workforce that they need. Yeah, I think one of the mantras in developing this plan has been reducing barriers, and so causing less friction certainly falls under that. We want to make sure that everything is as seamless as is possible. Cindy says that I agree with Norm. Funding for apprenticeships could be helpful. Given the length of time for competition of an apprenticeship, it doesn't align with length of time to support OJT, on the job training, as well as meeting performance in other areas in the local workforce area that the local workforce area is graded on. Thank you, Cindy. And I would add that something we haven't talked about today, but has been another major focus of development of this plan, is working with other workforce development systems within the state and other areas that align with what we are trying to do within WIOA. A lot of that has been around apprenticeships. And so we are talking with, for example, the state is getting about $1 billion in broadband funding. And how can we leverage apprenticeships to support that? The state also has a new apprenticeship grant, and how does that work within the state? And how do we coordinate, align, and leverage other efforts that are going on with outside of WIOA within WIOA? But I would also say, I think, when we're talking about traditional apprenticeships, your point is well taken that the length of time for completing of those is longer than what maybe the local areas in the state are graded on by the federal government. So again, in the plan, we need to ensure accessibility. There are specific sections. Again, if you go back to what is the purpose of this document, it is both a vision setting document and a compliance document. So there are specific sections that are required to address accessibility. However, Governor Pritzker has really put a focus on ensuring accessibility and equity throughout the system, and we are making sure to infuse that throughout the plan. Learnings from the Governor's Commission on Workforce Equity and Access are incorporated throughout this plan, including in specific sections required around accessibility. And specific activities that the state will undertake include looking at an assessment of service delivery. So maybe conducting a holistic assessment of service delivery in the state and make recommendations about improvements based on that assessment. Looking at one-stop center certification. So how can we use the process of certifying one-stop centers to ensure that local workforce areas focus on equitable and accessible service delivery? For those of you that are involved in the region and local plan development, that's another area of how can we use those plans to ensure that the system is equitable and accessible for everyone. We also realize that accessibility needs supported. So how can we provide professional development as well as technical assistance to service delivery providers to support them in their effort to create an equitable system? And then also, just like today, providing real-time interpreters for individuals, whether that is sign language or, as we've talked about, English as a second language. How can we support everyone in their participation and access to the system? So I will pause here and ask you if there are any specific activities and actions that need to be included in the plan to ensure an equitable and accessible system. All right, well, we are nearing the end of the presentation today. Kathy, could you elaborate on that? Do you mean in terms of service delivery, so having a real-time person embedded in a local area, or do you mean like today where it's at the request of individuals? Just looking for a little elaboration on that. So that's another one where I will get back to you on that. It's an interesting suggestion, and I think again something that I'd ask you, is that something that would be useful that you're seeing a need for in the local areas? Mm. So, Kathy, I don't want to leave you hanging. I think that's something that we will discuss and provide an answer, a written answer to you, or some follow up. Jennifer asks or says, I think that a evaluation of performance outcomes for certain populations would increase accessibility. For instance, current performance outcomes make it difficult to serve certain disabled persons if we know they may never meet the negotiated wage expectation for the performance. So Jennifer, to that, I would say that that is a something that you would need to lobby your congressman about as part of reauthorization of the WIOA law. I think we negotiate with the federal government, but ultimately those negotiated outcomes are kind of determined by them. So if they can provide any relief, I think the state would welcome that. Thanks, Kathy. That's a great point. Thank you, Valerie. So I do have another question coming in through the Q&A box. Will there be volunteers who could be a test individual of the experience and report their experiences? Anonymous, could you elaborate on that? A volunteer to test their experiences regarding, I'm just regarding what specifically? All right, and while that Anonymous works on elaborating there, I will discuss the next steps. So we are preparing to do in-person listening sessions. We will share a registration link with you in the very near future, likely tomorrow, that has a listing of those sessions, including dates, times, and locations. We are planning to have at least one in-person listening session in all 10 economic development regions throughout the state. We are also planning on holding multiple listening sessions within Chicago in the Chicago metro area. Again, we encourage you to attend those. The format will be very similar to today, only in person. And we would also encourage you, again, if you are what I'm going to call a behind the counter person, if you are a service delivery person, or if you're a community-based organization that advocates for certain populations or serves certain populations, once you have the information on these in-person sessions, please share it with your networks. The more people that we can have attending, the more robust the conversation we can have, and the more true to life our state plan can be. We truly want to seek out your feedback and the feedback of everyone in the state that is or could be impacted by the workforce development system. So we know that what we are included in the plan can truly serve people and help people and employers. So we will carry out those listening sessions from October through November. We will incorporate feedback from those listening sessions, including feedback we heard today, into the draft state plan. We will publish a draft plan for public comment in January. That's another chance for people to provide their feedback. We will incorporate that feedback in February of 2024, and then we will submit that to the U.S. Department of Labor in March. That plan will go into effect July 1 of 2024. Oh, okay. So, excuse me, Anonymous has elaborated on the question. So, um, a person walks into a WIOA office, how they are greeted, can they get to someone who is helping on the computer, or how soon can they get help? So, I think they're saying, can we have volunteers for just the general experience of accessing services? Yes, certainly. Anonymous, I think that would be part of our holistic approach to examining service delivery in the local areas. I think that would be very, very good. All right, I have a question coming through from Kathy about, as I mentioned earlier, we have the state plan, but the state plan incorporates or then feeds into a regional plan, which then feeds into a local plan. And the state is currently developing guidance on those. Kathy, yes, we have two webinars coming up on that. The first one is October 11th. We will provide a webinar that will walk through the draft guidance for region and local plans, as well as draft guidance for negotiating memorandums of understanding and budgets for local areas for program year 24. Both of those will be discussed in the same webinar, and it will be on October 11th with final guidance issued on November 15th. And those region and local plans will be very reflective in terms of their broad content as to what we discussed today, but will also, again, they serve as a compliance document in addition to a visioning document. So there will be some specific compliance components of that. I'll just pause here to see if we have any other questions or feedback. Yes, we have Mike Baker from DCEO.
Thank you, Drew. Hey, Kathy, in response to your question, we also are planning a walkthrough of the regional economic data packets on October 4th, and an invitation will be coming through the regular channels on that very soon. But that's in response to our talk earlier this week or last week with the local directors from here at DCO. So we do plan to walk everyone through a sample data packet and take feedback on what we have in there. So look for that coming up.
Thanks, Mike. I have two other things coming through. One is a question from Norm. He said, any updates on the trade program? And Norm, are you talking specifically about trade readjustment assistance and TAA, trade adjustment assistance? Those two programs? While you type in that, I will read a comment from Jennifer. I would love to see the state accept passing portions of the GED to count as MSGs. That will increase accessibility and make it easier to serve that population. Thank you, Jennifer. Norm, I don't have an update on that. I'm not sure if that has, so for the larger group out there, trade readjustment assistance and trade adjustment assistance are two required programs within WIOA. They were not reauthorized and sunset previously, but there was funding still available for them. And the way that they were sunset was only for individuals impacted after they sunset. They were still in effect for any individuals who were impacted before they sunset. I don't have an update on that, but we can certainly circle back to you and see if there's been any change on that. I think that would be, that's a point well taken, especially for when we're presenting on the MOU negotiating process. All right. Well, if no one has any other questions, like I said, we will be following up with you, I believe tomorrow with the PowerPoint, and we will be sharing with you also a link to the registration page for in-person listening sessions. And again, I would just really request that you share that information far and wide. We really want to ensure a robust discussion and that as many people as can participate and are aware of it. I'm sure that a lot of you have it, and we will include this in the email as well. But I'm going to drop my email into the chat. If you have any follow-up comments or suggestions or questions, please reach out to me. We'd love to hear from you.
Okay, thank you everyone for your time today. I'm going to close this out.
Thank you, everyone.